Hello friends, this is Dr. Cheek and this is week 4, lecture 2. Week 1 is a survey of constitutionalism writ large, some of the ideas central to the creation of constitutions and the role of constitutions. And also I'm going to give you an ideology test, really kind of for you to just sort of sample and come up with what your ideology may be, and we're going to talk more about that in a few moments. And this is lecture 2, which surveys really pages 19 through 27 in the Cheek lecture notes, and will be somewhat more brief than our previous lectures. Okay, ideologies and constitutions, week 4, lecture 2. Keep in mind that an ideology, I-D-E-O-L-O-G-Y, is a set of political ideas. Most people do not think that they have an ideology, but in reality we all have an ideology. Sometimes an ideology or a set of political ideas can be so dramatic, so powerful that it can control a political system, control political activity in a country, and dominate the institutions that of course we have learned to be called a government. An ideology is typically, in comparative politics, a set of ideas about how the state should be run, how the state should operate, how it can be most efficient, how can we represent the people most thoroughly. And an effective ideology creates political legitimacy, makes the state acceptable, and the actions of the state acceptable to the people in the state. There are different types of political ideology. Typically the stress is on the consistency. The ideology makes sense. The ideology is natural. The ideology is comprehensive. It covers all aspects of life, particularly in authoritarian political cultures where the political ideology, and totalitarian political cultures where the political ideology dominates the way citizens think about the political system. Some of the dominant political ideologies, and I am just surveying them here very quick. You really must study the lecture notes where they're given to you more thoroughly and with greater insight. Probably the predominant political ideology, what America has spread to the rest of the world, and really Western Europe, and is the most attractive and the most alluring ideology in the 21st century, is that of liberalism. Often associated, often confounded, but basically that ideology that is associated with democracy, a system of government that guarantees liberty, where liberty is the highest order of that political system. The lecture notes talk about several types of liberalism: traditional liberalism, or laissez-faire liberalism, or use a really fancy term that you can use to win friends and influence people, Manchesterian liberalism, coming out of England. The idea of free markets, that the free exchange of economic goods creates political freedom. So economic liberty and political liberty go hand in hand, and they go together. That's what traditional liberalism meant. We also talk in the notes at great length about contemporary liberalism. Contemporary liberalism is somewhat different. It's not free market. It's not just a free economic exchange of goods. It's that a liberal political order requires participation by everyone. That suffrage, voting, everyone is involved. The state is also seen as more of a positive force than in traditional liberalism, where traditional liberalism says that it's a free market that creates political liberty and allows people to basically do what they want to do. Traditional liberalism says the state is kind of the guardian, and a number of issues in the lecture notes describe this. Second major ideology is conservatism. Conservatism is the preservation of the most enduring elements of one's political system and one's political culture. And we want to preserve certain values, and oftentimes it's those values that are questioned or threatened that you want to protect and want to preserve. And it's very dependent upon inherited understandings from both the law and constitutionalism. We talk about two types of conservatism in the lecture notes: moral conservatism, so the idea of an overall purpose of the regime, that there needs to be self-restraint. The government is this restraining force on the people, and therefore the sort of idea of moral conservatism is that the state is restrained by these moral ideas and these provisions and these laws, and people are allowed to continue to live lives human flourishing, and also allowed to be protected by, let's say, more extreme decision making that could take place in a liberal democracy. Economic conservatism, again, the strongest advocates of capitalism. That's the economic system itself that is more important than the political order. Another type of ideology, probably the most important in the 20th century, that's still around, never goes away in one variety or the other, is Marxism, based upon the ideas of Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Marxism is that economic relations determine everything. And there is a great deal of attention in the lecture notes on this topic. We talk about the basis and that notion of political order, the superstructure, what controls the economy. That basically the economy is made up of two groups: the bourgeoisie, which is the entrepreneurs, the factory owners, the producers, and they take all the wealth from society and keep it from the proletariat, which is the worker, the building block of society, and that's an unjust system, and there must be an overturning of that system. And we talk a great deal in the lecture notes, and there's discussion of this also in our textbook for the course. We talk about political systems born out of ideology. Most prominent, the most powerful, was the Soviet system, 1917 to really the 1991. I would urge you to read the lecture notes very carefully for insight on that system. There also is in the textbook additional reading on that. And another type of ideology in the study of comparative politics is fascism. Fascism really comes in the 20th century and is a type of National Socialism, very closely related to communism, usually defined by supernationalism, attachment to the country above all else, which is very different. Patriotism, which encourages you to love your country, but also to question your ideas of the country and admit when your country has gone wrong. Racism of various varieties. Totalitarianism in terms of politics. The state controls all aspects of the political system. Two most prominent examples, of course, Nazi Germany and fascist Italy, both in the first half of the 20th century. We talk about a number of other varieties in the lecture notes as well: feminism, Islam, and the aspects of those very contemporary, and in the case of Islam, ancient political movements, and how those ideas are related to ideology. We talk about the left, talk about the right. These are things that you'll need to get some understanding of as we continue in the course, and that we'll be talking about more and more. Okay, that's a quick overview. Thank you very much.